Hey everybody, welcome to Garden Time with Belle. If you're new to my channel, I am so glad you found me. I am a gardener here in the state of Missouri. I happen to live on about 10 acres out in the country in the middle part of our state. And that means I garden in a zone 6A, 6B. I'm really fortunate where I live and garden because zone 6AB is sort of somewhere in the middle of all the zones, the USDA zones, and that means I have a lot of flexibility on what kinds of things I can grow. And I happen to love change, and so we experience all four seasons. We have snow, sometimes ice, and bitter cold in the winter, and we have 100-degree and high humidity in the summer. I don't really think there is a perfect place to garden in the US, but I feel very fortunate that I get to garden where I do. And speaking of seasons, it is, let's see, I got to look at my watch. It is, we're into the second week of October, which means I am in a state of transition. Those of you who've been following my channel have been seeing me make some transitions in the garden, pulling out some of those summer annuals that were glorious for 4 or 5 months and really provided a lot of flower power. And now, we're having to transition to fall. And that's what today's video is all about. I'm going to take you along from garden to greenhouse. I'm going to take you along with me out into the garden and show you what I'm going to start bringing into my greenhouse so that I can extend the season, so I can continue to grow some things well into fall and winter. And I don't know if you're like me, but most gardeners are always checking the forecast. We are like farmers. We are looking at the forecast, looking ahead, seeing what our high and low temperatures are, in particular as we head into fall, because I know that there are a lot of annuals and flowers, and especially coleus, things that are sort of more tropical, that are outside in my garden. And I know if it gets below 50, if it gets into the 40s, for sure, if it gets close to 30s, those plants are going to be done. So I'm trying to be prepared, and today is the day that I'm going to start bringing more and more things into the greenhouse. I looked at the forecast this morning, and last night it got down to about 40 degrees outside, and next week they're predicting some lows in the upper 30s. So once that happens, very often a lot of my beautiful plants outside of the greenhouse will be no longer. So today's project is all about me bringing a few things inside. I'm going to pot up some things. I'm going to show you actually some things that I've already transitioned from outside to inside the greenhouse. So that's what today is all about. So before we head outside and find some plants to bring in the greenhouse for fall, I thought I just might show you what's in here now and some things I've already done. If you followed my channel and seen many of my other videos, you know that I love to grow geraniums, zonal geraniums, and they do really well in the greenhouse. Aren't these gorgeous? I mean, that coral color is just to die for. And fun fact, I have had these 3 little pots of geraniums for over a year. We got our greenhouse last August, and I brought them in from outside and have kept them going for a whole year. I did recently pull them out of these pots, refresh the soil, give them a little fertilizer, and pop them back in. But greenhouses are incredible for zonal geraniums. And then down here, here's a little blue pot. This is a geranium. I don't recall. This is one I grew from seed this year. It was outside, and I popped it in this pot, and it's going to enjoy fall and winter right in that spot. So in this raised bed, I have put some coleus. What I did, those of you that have followed my channel, I showed you how I like to take cuttings from coleus plants that are out in the garden and make more plants by propagating them, and it could not be easier. So I think I popped these in here in this raised box about, I'd say they've been in there about 2 weeks, but before I put them in here, I had beautiful sugar rush pepper plants, I had onions, I had leeks. Before that, last spring, I had lettuce and arugula and spinach growing in here in the greenhouse. So this is a multi-purpose spot. Here are several cuttings. I showed you how I did that of some other geraniums. They will do great all winter long as I keep the greenhouse warm enough and they get enough sun and water. And we'll talk about how to take care of things in the greenhouse in a little bit. And then last but not least, in terms of me transitioning and relocating plants from outside to inside, I popped in one of my tower basils. Never grew tower basil before, and it is phenomenal. So I popped this from my raised bed garden into this spot, I don't know, I think probably a couple weeks ago. And you see the parsley. Let me get in here close. There are 2 parsley plants here. And again, I took these 2 parsley plants from the top of my green stalk tiered garden that's out in my raised bed, and I pop them in so I can keep the basil and parsley going in my greenhouse for months and months and months. Again, as long as the nighttime temperature in here doesn't get below 50, they should be fine. Okay, we're up here on my deck and we're heading into the screened in porch because I am after that beautiful Boston fern. That's going to come with me into the greenhouse. But before I grab it and take it with me, just want to show you all, recently I posted a video of just some little things that I was doing to pot up some fall items like these gorgeous mums that are just starting to open, and these sweet little ornamental pepper plants that are just, I mean, look at that, isn't that cute? And of course, some pansies. So I just did this about a week ago. Put some pumpkins and gourds and pine cones in that little wooden trough there, and, you know, a little bit of decor to bring in fall. So, yep, next step, grab this fern and get it in the greenhouse. All right, time to head out of the greenhouse and head into my raised bed garden so I can show you all what it is I am wanting to dig out of here. I mentioned nasturtiums, and so that is what I'm after, but these beauties I will not be digging out. I don't think. I could change my mind. I'm going to go after some other ones, but I just wanted to mention these beautiful edible flowers, and great at putting in your vegetable garden to keep pests away from your plants. These actually lived in my greenhouse all last winter. And in May, I think this represents 3 plants. I transplanted them from the greenhouse to the garden. And now, haha, I'm going to do the reverse. I am going to transplant these nasturtiums from outside to inside. Just take a look at this beauty. I grew all of these from seed, and I just love, first of all, the deep dark red color, but just as much, I love the variegated foliage. It just looks like somebody flipped paint all over these beauties. So my idea is to come in here where I have them growing, and I'm a little nervous about it because I'm not sure how I'm going to get them out. I may have to start kind of dismantling my tiered garden box. So what I brought out here to do this particular job is I've got a couple of my seed starting trays from the greenhouse that once I pull out the nasturtium plants, I'll just lay them in here so I can carry them all inside the greenhouse. And I've got some gloves, and I've got my Hori Hori garden knife, garden spade knife. That is my best friend in the garden. So I'm thinking probably I'm going to have to dismantle this. This is 5 tiers. Never dismantled it yet this year. The things that I have pulled out of here, like the parsley, it was easy because they were in this top tier. So it may take me longer than I think it's going to take me. So I've got the camera set up. I'm going to just see what I can do. But I think I'm going to have to pull off a couple tiers so that I can really get in there and carefully pull those nasturtiums out. All right, you saw me take off the top 2 tiers so I could get a better access to this tier, and then there are more in the next tier. So I've already taken some things out. These are strawberries, but here's one of my nasturtiums. So I'm gonna use my Hori Hori to come down and hopefully gently remove this plant. We'll see. You know, this is the trailing variety of nasturtium, and so I want to be extra careful, you know, but I've never done this before, so hopefully I can get it all out, and I did. So that one worked out pretty well. This isn't flowering at the moment, but it's got a healthy root system. I'll lay it here in my tray. Okay, so that's that. I think I'm going to need to lift this one off to get to the rest of them. Oh my goodness. Okay. Look at this. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nasturtiums in this section. All right. Same process. I just want to take my time because they are really big plants. Well, as you saw, that could not have been easier. They lifted right out. I'm going to turn the camera around here so you can see what we're left with. So here is where I removed a bunch of them, and then as you'll notice, I've got nice big root balls for all 6 plants, so that's going to be great. And here are the layers from my vertical stacker that I had to put over here while I was working in that. Now that I've got my nasturtiums back in here, I have decided the first place I want to plant them is with these coleus. You know, these coleus, I'll have to probably prune them. They will, if they really like this spot, they're going to get pretty tall. And one of the beauties of nasturtiums, as you could see even outside, is their cascading effect. And so I think I've got 6. So I think I'm going to take 3 of them. I'm going to plant 1, 2, and 3, and that way they'll hopefully grow up and cascade over the side of this. So this could not be easier. What I'm going to do is put some Biotone root stimulator in each of the planting holes. Then I'll plant them in, pop them in, and then I am going to give them a drink. And let me grab, I've already got my big 2-gallon watering can in here that I was watering some other things yesterday with. And it already has some liquid fertilizer, Fruit and Flower by Argo Thrive. It's an organic liquid soluble liquid fertilizer. So I'm going to give them a gentle dose of that to kind of settle them in. And that's all I'm going to do with those 3. And then I'll be thinking as I place them what pot or pots the other 3 are going to go in so that they can enjoy life in the greenhouse, hopefully all the way through winter. Okay, time to make a hole. Easy. Little Biotone root stimulator, very mild, but because we're transplanting them, they might be a little shocky. Look at those beautiful roots. Shake off, put that in, push the soil back around it, lift it up here. It's such a nice mature plant that it'll already start to trail a little bit over the edge, and that'll be really nice. So I'll come back and remove any of the foliage that needs a little bit of a tune-up, but I think that's going to work just great. All right, so let's move here in the middle at the front. Get that soil out of there. This is such a simple job, but oh my gosh, I'm going to really appreciate this when I'm sitting here in the middle of winter with snow outside, sipping on a beautiful hot cup of coffee while I see all these summertime plants in bloom. A little bit more Biotone for this hole, just like the other. Okay, let's grab the next one. Pop that in its place, hold up the foliage, and draw the soil back in around it. Just like any kind of potting, especially of annual plants, you want to typically try to have the soil level about the same that it was in its container, and that's what we're doing here. So same thing, and then we need one more hole on this end. Okay, more Biotone root starter. Okay, and our last nasturtium plant from this tray. It's gonna nestle in here, and again push the soil back all the way around so there's not any big gaps or holes. Right. Now I'm just going to water them in with that low dose fertilizer that always settles the soil. And just in case you all are curious, I water these raised beds heavily with, I bring in my hose, my Hoselink hose that's right outside of the greenhouse. And I water these raised beds in the summer really heavily every other day. They have so much soil that they can really hold on to moisture. But gosh, later in the season, fall, maybe every 3 days or 4 days. So, you know, I just check the soil like I would anywhere else in my garden and see what it needs. So, all right, now I have to decide what pots those 3 last nasturtiums are going to go in. I have made my decision on what pot, and I am going to use this sweet terracotta clay antique pot I bought about a year ago. And just FYI, this was the pot I used all last fall and winter to grow the nasturtiums that you see in my raised bed garden, the ones that were that are orange and yellow that I said I'm not going to transfer back into the greenhouse, but this is where they got their start. And I believe I had 3 or 4 of those plants in here. And the beauty of this very tall, deep pot is they'll grow up and then they can cascade over the side. So I think from now on, this is going to be known as my nasturtiums pot for the greenhouse. All right, I've got some potting soil in there. I'm going to add a little bit more, and we'll just see. You know, the root balls from these three that I dug out are pretty big, and so they probably will fill up the majority of this. But I've got some fresh potting soil in the bottom, Biotone, root stimulator, and starter fertilizer. And so let's see how I might fit these three mature plants in this big pot. So let's see. Okay, so I know already I'm going to need some more soil to raise it up just a little bit. This is a little bit too deep. Okay. I will link in the description below this seed starting potting tray. Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite garden tools. I use it all the time. All my spillage, and you noticed I'm not the neatest gardener. It just contains everything nicely and is super easy for cleanup. So, all right, so there's one. Here's the other. Okay, and let's see if the third's gonna fit. I think I'm going to remove a little excess soil, but it won't hurt the plant. We'll put this down in and spread it around. Okay, and so I've got some pockets. So I'm going to use the soil that came from the digging and pack that in. And then if I need more fresh potting soil, which I think I might just a little bit more to fill in the gaps, then I'll do that. I'm just going to use my hands because really I don't think it's going to need much more. And just like any kind of potting up, you don't want the soil right up to the top of the pot, because when you water, then what'll happen is all that potting soil will spill over the edges and make a huge mess. So I'm just adjusting as I go so that it's not too high up the side of the pot. And of course, you know, when you water in initially, it will settle the soil down a bit. So that'll be good. Yeah, I think that's going to do it. It's not looking great now, but give these a couple of weeks to settle in and it's going to be beautiful. Well, that was such a fun project today, taking those nasturtiums from outside and bringing them inside my greenhouse, because now we're in October and it's going to start getting really cold nights in the next couple of weeks. And if I were to leave them outside, they would not survive. And if I'm as lucky this year as I was last winter, the nasturtiums that I potted up in here today will continue to produce beautiful color and flowers all winter long. And I'm trying my hand at overwintering that fern, and so hopefully I'll have good luck with it as well. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel so I can continue to share some of my gardening adventures with the rest of you. And if you have comments, suggestions, I would love to hear from you. We all garden in different ways and we can all learn from each other. That's really the purpose of my channel, is just to share the way that I go about doing things. It's not the only way. It's certainly not the right way for everybody, but I really have a lot of fun sharing that with you, and I learn from you as well. So anyhow, until next time, I wish you all happy gardening.